the best way to reach someone in the media is really to just reach out.
What is up, everybody? Hey, it's me, Lucky, and today we have another special episode. I have Mr. Darren Nichols here. Without further ado, Darren, how are you?
I'm doing just fine, thank you. How are you, Lucky?
Oh, I'm doing spectacular.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah. So if you could tell the viewers a little bit about yourself. What do
Okay,
you got going on?
well, for those of you who do not know who I am, my name is Darren Nichols. I am now a contributing columnist at the Detroit Free Press. I have been most of my career, I am a journalist. I've been a journalist for over 30 years. And most of my experience was at the Detroit News, where I was in Detroit City Hall, and I covered 5 administrations for the city, and I was the person who outlined the financial crisis in Detroit that led to the bankruptcy. So that is Darren in a nutshell.
Oh my goodness. So I have to ask you, what even brought you to the media world? What brought you to the world of reporting?
Believe it or not, it started when I was in high school. I have a sports background. And my dad ran athletics for the Detroit Public School System. And as a result, all of the coaches would read my high school stories. And so as a result, there were several high school coaches who came to my dad, in particular, Perry Watson, who was at Southwestern. And he told my dad, he was a high school counselor at the time, and he told my dad that he thought that I had a very promising career in sports journalism. And I took that to heart because he was such a prominent coach. And here I am 30 years later.
Oh my goodness. Oh, and what a tangled web we weave. Look at you now getting interviewed.
Yes. That's okay. I've done this a couple times before, so it's good.
Nice. Yeah, and so what stories do you have going on right now? What projects are going on for you?
Oh goodness. The biggest project that I'm working on right now is for ESPN's Andscape. I'm doing a year-long series on HBCU bands. And so every month I'm doing a feature on different aspects of HBCU bands and profiles of some of the things that the bands have going on. The first month was Norfolk State University and their performance at the Rose Bowl Parade. In February, it was Tennessee State that was up for a Grammy and ultimately won a Grammy. And last month I did a story about all of the HBCU bands that have been on television ads and in different spaces that puts HBCU bands. Sort of basically about how HBCU bands are putting the HBCU culture in front of the mass audiences more often than not, than by having them on TV and things like that.
Oh wow. Oh my goodness. And so let me ask you this. So what attracts you to the specific stories that you do? What makes it news for you? Is it a trend or is it self-interest? Like what brings you to the stories that you do?
Wow. A lot of the stories are my own story ideas. There are things that I bring to the table myself, particularly as a contributing columnist at the Free Press. I write about Black issues here and around Detroit. And so I use my experience in Detroit City Hall and write about the things that are going on there. And I have very strong opinions about some of the things that go on there. When it comes to some of the other things, the HBCU story that I did about TV ads, it started very simply. I saw an HBCU band on a Home Depot commercial. And I said, well, I wonder, how many other HBCU bands have been on TV recently. And from there, I found a number of HBCU bands that have been on TV over the last 2-3 months or so. And so yeah, and you start, continue gathering string, and next thing you know, I ended up with the second highest read story on the site, on the Andscape site for that day. So with over 15,000 views. So so a lot of them come from my own ideas. But that's after 30 years of being in the business.
Yeah. Oh my God, very seasoned, sir. Yes, you are.
Early in my career, you take any and every assignment that is sent your way.
Okay.
And so I did that. I learned the basics in this business so that I'm able to write about sports. I'm able to write about news, and I'm able to even shift to write about things like you wouldn't think that. I mean, I have a very good interest in music, and so because of that, it brought me to being able to cover HBCU bands because
Nice.
I love music. So so you're able to do any and everything when you are when you're very skilled and learn the basics of what we do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so now I have to ask you, if there are people out there that are, or let's say within the guidelines of the type of stories that you produce, what advice would you potentially offer them, or would you offer them advice on how they share their stories with the media? How do they reach someone like you? How does that work?
Absolutely. The best way to reach someone in the media is really to just reach out. And I think that is an issue with the Black community, because if we don't know about things, we're not able to write about things. And so because of our love-hate, being Black folks' love-hate relationship with the media, we don't necessarily reach out to the media to let us know what is going on in our community. And if you let us know, I'm not going to say 9 times out of 10, but in a lot of cases, we will come out and we will cover the things that are going on in our communities, in our neighborhoods. But the people have to let us know what's going on. We can't cover things that are going on in our community if we don't know about it. And I think that is the misnomer about, and you don't have to scream fire for us to come out. Just let us know. I mean, last week is a good example when the Detroit 300 and several other community groups were out and they were looking for the rapists on the west side of Detroit. And they let the media know that that's what they were going to be doing. And we certainly covered that. And we covered it every day until that rapist was caught. And so I think that's a good example of, you let the media know what's really going on in the hood, that we'll cover it.
Okay. And I guess now I'll ask you, so what would you say, aside from, I guess, the not so much being alerted, but aside from that, what would you say has been your greatest challenge in either producing stories or in just in working with media?
Oh, wow. My biggest challenge in working in the media is being an African-American man for our community. When you are unapologetically Black, that's not popular. That's not necessarily what's going to make you a whole lot of money. Because there's not a whole lot of us in the business, right? Because of other factors, there aren't a whole lot of regular Black folks who cover regular Black folks' stories, and who are visible, right? And so that is the biggest challenge, is being, I'm a Detroiter, I grew up on the west side of Detroit. I'm a Mumford guy, and I'm in and around, before I got sick, but I was in and around. I'm still, involved in what's going on in the city all the time. And so, people see me all the time. I'm not just Darren Nichols who hides behind his byline. I'm Darren Nichols that you will see out and about, mingling and, understanding and knowing and really trying to um, cover Black folks and cover our issues. And so I would say that's my biggest challenge is because that's not popular. You have to remember that, the majority of the folks that I work with are white folks. The majority of my bosses are white folks. And I remember, sitting around, I was one of the only advocates for Black folks when it came to the financial crisis. And I remember sitting around a table with 13 editors one day, and they were talking about that there was not going to be any problems with Kevin Orr coming in as the emergency manager. And I told them all that they were crazy, that we didn't know it was Kevin Orr at the time. They just said somebody Black. And I said they were absolutely crazy if they thought that people were not going to protest against that, and we should be prepared for that. And they looked at me like I was crazy. And I brought up the example, that, if you think that Black folks aren't going to protest just because a Black person is in office, you might want to take a look at what's going on with Detroit schools, where they have been protesting for the last 15 years because of the takeover of the Detroit public school system. And so those things are not popular. And it doesn't necessarily win you popularity contests with other people in the office, but that is what I do. And so that's what I would say is the biggest challenge.
Yeah, wow. And reporting things like that, or reporting in anything, do you find that there has been any dangers that you've come in contact with, or is there any risk that you feel?
Absolutely. You would not imagine how many times I've been called the N-word, and heard those N-words when they're referring to Black people in Detroit. And we're talking about people who, would send me voicemail, who would send me email, all that kind of stuff. And so, in one instance, I did have to forward one to Detroit Police Chief at the time, Ralph Gobby. And he made threats about what he was going to do. Now, did I take him serious? No, because 10 minutes later he called, and this white guy drunk at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and started doing all of those kinds of things, right? And so
your personal phone?
No, this was at work, my voicemail.
Okay.
And so but I did forward it to the Detroit Police Department. You cannot make a threat and I don't take action. And so I would say that is a difficult part of it. And when you're knocking on people's doors that you don't know, that is, people think that is easy. People think that covering the murders of people, the death of people is easy. That is that's a very hard thing to do. And I try to, let people know that we're talking about Black life here. And this was before Black Lives Matter was popular. And I would go to people and I would say that your child matters. Me telling you about your child's life matters. And if you don't, they're just going to say it's another little N-word that was killed. And so, I tried to break down those barriers, but that's hard. Getting the door slammed in your face is not an easy thing. So.
Yeah, I can imagine the resilience you have there, the perseverance, I can't even say the word, the perseverance that's there. So now let's switch gears. What has been the most victorious moment or story you've had?
Oh goodness, the most victorious story. I mean, I've done thousands of stories in my career. Yeah. Let's say, I would say the day that I wrote the story that there were two teenagers that were jailed in Taylor,
Okay.
and they had been picked up on a murder charge.
Okay.
The police kept them overnight. They were teenagers. Kept them overnight and got a confession out of them.
Wow.
And they were going to be charged for murder. And I wrote the story. I wrote several stories that ultimately got them free from jail.
Wow.
Got them free from being charged from their murder charges. So I would say that was probably one of the more gratifying stories in my career because I saved two lives.
That's very, that's
And
pretty good.
they were very good kids at the time. And they were out hanging out, and they were in the projects in Taylor. And the police made a rush to judgment and brought them in, and because they were scared, they made a confession, and they had been up all night. And so because of that, the case was just very flimsy. And so after we were able to kind of break down what really went on, it did get them freed and released from custody.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's awesome. Well, congratulations on that. And thank you for that. Oh, my goodness. And just a couple more questions. I don't want to take too much of your time.
Oh, you can take as much time as you want.
Thank you. So now, what advice would you give to a reporter or an individual looking to come into the field at this point?
It's very simple. Learn the basics. If you learn the basics in this business, you'll be able to do anything possible. I never imagined being able to be a columnist at the Detroit Free Press, although it was a goal of mine. But it really comes from honing my basics. I always wanted to be a sports columnist and to be in sports, and I ended up on the news side of things. But that was primarily because I knew the basics of this business, and I was a good reporter. And so once you become a good reporter, you're able to do anything in this business. So I would say, learn the basics. If you learn the basics, you can do a little bit of anything.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with everyone. And how do the viewers get in contact with you? Is there a website you have or social you'd like to share?
Sure. You can reach me on all social media platforms. I am on Facebook under my name, Darren Nichols. If you type that into the search, you'll find that. You can find me on Twitter at dnick12. You can find me on Instagram at dnick128. I have a press folio out there where you can read some of my work. You'll have to Google it, Darren Nichols Press Folios. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact address to that.
No, I'll add it to the screen.
And then you can also, always shoot me an email at Darren at dnick-media.com.
Oh, perfect.
I can be found on all of those platforms.
I definitely have to say thank you. Thank you for chatting with us today. You've definitely given us a lot of valuable information in your valuable time. So thank you so much for sharing with the viewers.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And,
Absolutely.
if you want me to come back, I'm definitely
Please do.
Definitely willing to be there.
Okay, well, I'm just going to go ahead and close with you all. So as I always say, come close to me if you will. Say this with me. I am lucky from now on. And say it in the mirror. I am lucky from now on. All right?
I am lucky from now on.
Thank you so much. All right, you guys. All right, until next time.